All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome to my lecture demo experimental casting, pouring plaster and silica on anything. I'm Jacci Delaney, and today we will be working with this teddy bear that I have ready right now. And I want you to know that even if there isn't a dialogue box from Gas right now, that I will be on my Instagram and my Facebook checking messages. So please feel free to send me a message. It's at Jacci Delaney, and my Facebook is Jacci Delaney. So, um, yes, I'd love to hear what you think and questions you have. So, um, and one other thing, this is also my newly formed garage art studio that I just got organized during the beginning of quarantine from COVID-19. And so the theme of this year's GAS conference is do what you can at home. So, with that being said, I'll be making the mold of this teddy bear soon. Um, and just so you know, I did receive this teddy bear from a friend. It has been used and loved. And I prefer the used teddy bears because I like the texture. And then I feel less bad for what I'm about to do to this. So, I had gotten this bear ready before we started. There's a few things I did I need to show you. Um, it's sitting on a wooden platform here, and there's also a wooden board going through the back of the bear up to the head that you can actually feel right here. And then to keep the arms from moving, there is a bamboo stick going up from the leg into each arm right there. So I did that. I'll show you that when I divest this, and you can see all the stuff that was in this bear. Fun fact that this bear is filled with those plastic beads, which I've done two bears previously, and the others were stuffing. So I'm interested to see how this turns out with like plastic beads coming out of it. So we'll see what happens with that. Um, so the first thing you want to do with the teddy bear is get it as stable as you can for making the mold. So I used a Super 77 from 3M, and I used that to glue the bear down to the platform and the arms down to the legs and the back of the arms down to the back and these legs here. So, and I tried to glue the tail down to the board. That sort of worked out. We'll see how that turns out, but that's okay. And so now I am getting ready to spray it with my shellac from Zinsser. It's the spray. And I like this spray because it's really, really light, and so it's not going to ruin the texture of the bear. So you'll see that in a second. And then the other thing I just want to point out is it looks like the bear is eating like a chocolate covered pretzel rod. That is not what it is. This is about four bamboo sticks covered in wax because I was thinking about it last night, and I realized I needed a sprue here to let out the air as this mold fills, because this neck right here gets really small, and then it gets kind of probably about twice that size. If I don't let that air out, the glass might not fill all the way, especially these ears because they're pretty thin. So I made the sprue today, so now we're gonna glue that. And I'm actually gonna use the Elmer spray glue because it's a little more tackier and better with teddy bears. So we'll see how that goes. You know, it might already be stuffed pretty well. And I do recommend wearing gloves because getting this off is just not fun anymore. So that should work. All right, so that's on there, and just clear that out a bit. All right, so now I'll spray the shellac on the whole bear. Always give this stuff a good shake before you start doing this. And you'll watch how this spray just kind of sits on top of their fur. So, and I'm doing the little circles, wax on, wax off, like the Karate Kid. It works for everything, even in cold working and mold making. So I'll do this around the entire bear. I'm going to go around this side. And I'm making sure to get pretty good in those crevices there. All right, and so I will let that dry for at least an hour before I put on another coat of this. The goal is to make this bear, even though it's really soft, as stiff as you can. So it has about 2 coats now, and I'll probably add about 2 more in the process. And after I shut off the video, I'm going to go around the front and spray that part again just to make sure we got everything. So, and then the good news about doing this via video like this versus being in Sweden, which is a bummer, is that you get to see the preparation for this. This is about a 2 to 3 day process getting this teddy bear ready, because I'll be putting the glue and shellac on here the first day, and then tomorrow I'll be doing the Vaseline and Murphy's oil soap on this, and I want that to soak for at least about 24 hours, just so it's all the way deep saturated. It's gonna help get this bear out of the plaster. And then the next day I'll be making the mold. So because we're doing a video like this, I can stop and edit, and you can see this preparation. And again, if you have any like questions or ideas, please let me know, because it truly is experimental. And one thing I learned, I did try to stick screws in here instead of bamboo, and that didn't work because the bear started turning with the drill. So I had to switch that out for bamboo sticks. So welcome back, everyone. This is day 2 of getting the bear ready to make the mold. So yesterday I put on, it ended up being 5 coats of our spray, and the bear is actually pretty hard. You can kind of see that. Let me go get a detail shot of that. There's our little detail video of the bear here. You can see it's like, it's still like a little smushy, but still it's nice and hard now. So it springs back exactly where it's supposed to be, which is good for putting the plaster on. So that way this bear won't shift while we're making it, and we won't have any fracturing in our mold for this mold release. So I'm going to spray this whole thing now, and I'll probably do about 3 to 4 more coats of Murphy's oil in the next couple hours. And then after that, I'm going to do the Vaseline mineral spirits combo on here. So I will just start spraying this bear now. So good times. And same with before, I just want that nice light spray. I want to get this whole bear as soaked as I can. Don't you feel bad for this bear? Poor thing. It's fine. It gets to be really clean before, you know, the mold, so I guess that's a plus for it. Again, make sure to get in those crevices really good. All that fun stuff where it makes it super hard to get out of the mold. So like that nose right there is thread, which I really like that texture, but I'm just gonna douse that so it comes out of our plaster. So that should be good for our first coat. So while that soaks in, I'm actually going to cover it with a garbage bag just to keep that moisture in there. So that'll hang out. I'll come back and spray this some more. And I pretty much want this thing soaked before we pour that plaster silica on there. Okay. All right, so now I've sprayed the teddy bear a few times with the Murphy's oil and water combo. That's taken about 4 hours. So now I'm going to start with the um, jar that is about a 50-50 combination of mineral spirits and petroleum jelly. And this does look pretty disgusting, but it's good because it thins out the Vaseline, so it'll go in the crevices of the bear more, which is what we need for be able to get it out of the plaster silica. So I'm going to apply this very meticulously, and so that should be. It'll take a while for me to do this, so I'll start doing that. So I'm just using some brushes. I got a toothbrush. I got a couple other brushes. I always start with my the nickel brush first. And I'm just gonna brush that in there. And you want to get it in there as deep as you can for this, because anywhere that plaster goes, that's where the bear can get stuck. So I'll just keep adding this for a while. I'm gonna grab this towel here. I have sped up the video for putting the Vaseline mineral spirits on to 300%, and I'm going to tell you about this first image here. This was made in 2011, and this is when I started grad school at Ohio State, and that's when I got really experimental with casting. They had the facilities there to try out this stuff, and one of the things I decided I wanted to do was cast a plastic bag in glass, and that was because I worked at a Walmart warehouse and I needed to say something about that. When I went to do that, I realized I had all these plastic bags and bubble wrap in my studio, and I decided to do the bubble wrap instead. And so the first thing I decided to do was fill up a plastic bin with plaster silica and then push my hands in there with large bubble wrap on the outside of my hands to make my first big mold ever. What happened was that worked, and my logic was that I would be able to get my hands out because the bubble wrap has enough of a 1-inch cushion. I could pull my hands out. It didn't work like that. My hands got stuck in there, and some friends had to put warm water and Dawn dish soap into the holes where my hands are, and I was pulling up so much they had to stand on the plastic bin, and I finally was able to pull my hands out, and I definitely bruised both of my thumbs, and that was my big first experimental casting I ever did. The first big mold, this one was technically a failure in how I made it, but I still ended up using the mold to make the next piece I'm about to show you. Here is the piece made from that mold. Theoretically, there's part of the hand in bubble wrap there. That's what caused the creases, but I became interested in the texture of it more and kept working with bubble wrap. This is one of the first cubes I made, and I started making these 5 by 5 by like 3 or 4 inch cubes right after that first piece. And I wanted to do cubes because I was always interested in geometry. I I just loved using angles, and I first made the cubes by casting plaster silica flats, and that would just be a big flat piece of plaster silica, and then I kind of made those into boards, and I stacked 4 of them in a kiln to get the cube shape. It sort of worked. The problem was the boards would kind of shift in the kiln, and so I'd have to do an incredible amount of cold working to get everything nice and square again. And then I realized I could make a steel cube that was 5 by 5 by 5 inches, and I cast plaster silica around that. And then with a lot of help usually and Vaseline, I was able to push the cube through the mold. The molds didn't have a bottom, so you could then push or pull the cube out of there. I ended up doing about 6 cubes that first year, and then over the summer, I took a class at Pilchuck and I learned how to do hollow core casting. And I finally figured out how to correctly make a mold in my hand, which was important. And so this is my hand, and it's hollow with bubble wrap on the outside. So I made that mold by making alginate of my hand and then poured plaster silica, making the positive of the hand. I then wrapped wax bubble wrap around that and made the plaster silica mold on the outside for my first ever hollow core casting. I really got into hollow core casting, and I think it's a great way to add layers into your work. Now I can take my toothbrush and kind of fluff up that hair again. You see how it's kind of fluffing back up for us? That's what I'm going to do now. So theoretically, I smeared the Vaseline into our bear. Now I'm just going to go back and kind of lift the hair back up. So it looks all fluffy-ish, like a teddy bear. Oh look, I'm working super fast again. Just kidding, it's at 200%. So now I started making my head wrapped in bubble wrap in glass. So I moved the hollow core casting up to a much larger size, and you can see in this image it's a my plaster silica head. It has wax on it, so it's a little bit thicker, and then I wrapped bubble wrap around that, and those pink stripes you see are dental wax from the orthodontist. That stuff works great for getting plastic to stick to itself and other materials. I really recommend that. And the thing below it, that is the sprue I was using for that piece. And there is a like plastic container that I also put wax on just to save on wax. The corrugated steel above the head there you can see is what the plaster silica for the next coat on top of that whole thing is going to stick to. So if you ever do the hollow core casting, you always have to stick out a piece of steel or a screw like that so it attaches to something and it can't come apart. Once I had the plaster all over this, I did have to go in the mold with tweezers and very gently pull the bubble wrap out of that mold. It did take a while, but it was possible. And always, always leave it wet so it's easier to get stuff out of the mold. And here's that mold going into the kiln. I did 2 molds at the same time, and they were both hot casted. We're on day 3 of the mold making process now. So we put Murphy's oil on here and Vaseline yesterday. And so now we're going to make the mold today. The stuff is soaked in overnight, so that should help with getting this out of the plaster silica. We'll be doing the splash method today for this, and I'm going to have an assistant. This is Caleb Akers. He'll be helping us out. And so it's going to be a fairly quick process. We'll try not to block the camera, and it'll be really fun. All right, welcome back. We're doing the first coat. We're going to do the splash method, and we're pretty much going to do this as fast as we can. So I'm just going to kind of dump this on there first, and then take our chip brush and we brush that in as much as we can. So we are making a mold super fast again. And here is the head. This took about 6 weeks in a kiln because you have to anneal for the inside plaster silica, the glass, and then the outside plaster silica. I did look at this for a while, and I decided to cold work away half of the bubble wrap on one side and then polish it. This really gets into experimental casting because I didn't know if it would work, and it ended up taking me a long time to finish this. I made this head and the other head, as you saw in the previous picture of the molds. And that one was made with large bubble wrap. These 2 pieces really set me up for my next piece, which was bubble wrap child, and I'll be showing you that next. Here's the large bubble wrap piece. The force of the glass actually bent the head on the steel when it was in the kiln, so it kind of swung to the right. But I really liked the effect that happened because it made the head look like it was rising out of the glass. So that was a happy accident that I really enjoyed with this piece. This is the first bubble wrap child we made at Ohio State. This is about 48 inches long, 8 or 9 inches thick, and probably weighs over 100 pounds. We never got to weigh it yet. So this was the big mold I made, and I was making it for my thesis exhibition. To do this piece, I borrowed a mannequin. It was plush from a department store warehouse, and I put saran wrap over the whole thing and then bubble wrap and made the mold from that. And I did manage to keep the mannequin clean, and I returned it. And this is when we filled it with glass. It was hot casted. And if you notice towards the bottom of the mold there's like a little thin spot by that arm that I kind of questioned when I was loading the mold, but I thought, hey, it'll be okay. And it was not okay. So this is a catastrophic failure. It sealed the door to the kiln shut, and Richard Harnett had to pry that open. What happened was the excess glass above the body of the mold flowed out, which ended up being good because then I didn't have to grind it all off. I did salvage this piece, but real tears were cried over this breaking, and I learned a lot from this. So, of course, I had to do it again, and I had to make it better this time. Here is bubble wrap child number 1. It doesn't look like anything bad happened to it. It's still a good piece right now. I learned from this piece I need to make an easy way for a sculpture like this to stand up, because making this wooden stand was very difficult. So for the next bubble wrap child, I made the bottom nice and flat. All right, so we'll let that set up for 20 minutes and then we'll do the next coat. Things went pretty well so far. All right. Okay, so now we're about to pour the second coat of plaster silica. Our first coat was 18 pounds and the second coat is going to be 30 pounds. And then we're going to do a third coat, which will be plaster silica and grog, and that'll probably be 30 pounds as well. So it's looking good so far. All right, I'm just going to give this a quick douse just to keep everything happy. This is just water. All right. Is that good?
I think so.
All right. Let's go for it. Oh, you're over. So I sped this up 300% because I figured everyone has made molds before, and you already saw the first coat. So back to the bubble wrap child. For the second iteration of this project, I decided I really wanted to see the cavity of the child, like in the heads. So I wanted to make it hollow. So that became a whole new mold making process for making a piece this large. The first part of the process for making Bubble Wrap Child 2 was making a positive of the plush child I had and attaching it to the plaster silica flat that is right there. This is the outer shell of the mold, so you can see the orange cups are the sprues. There was 3, and we did actually have this over the positive with a few layers of bubble wrap to make it thick enough for the glass to be okay in there. We put the top and bottom molds together and then used coddling boards and started pouring both sides of that, and then added another layer of plaster silica around the whole thing. Here's the mold loaded into the car kiln. It took a forklift to move the mold into the kiln, and at this point it weighed over 600 pounds. I then welded angle iron around the mold and added another layer of plaster silica, making the total weight of the mold 900 pounds. This was in the kiln for 8 weeks, and the mold came out perfectly. We did not have any problems with the mold breaking during the casting. Here's the Bubble Wrap Child 2. It weighs over 100 pounds, and I oil painted the inside a flesh color so you could see it more through the glass, but it worked out, and it felt good that after all my experimenting that this mold worked out so well. So here's the second coat. We're gonna let this dry for 20 minutes, and then we'll do the third coat. So we ended up mixing 64 pounds of plaster, silica, water, and grog. It's all mixed up now, so you ready? Yeah? All right, we're gonna do this. Yeah. and break up any lumps you see.
And we speed up. So here is a piece called Fragile No More. I made this with a wax of my fist and then put real bubble wrap around the wrist there using that same pink orthodontist wax. And then pretty much made a mold of that and steamed it out. This piece is cranberry volume. I made a mold of a circle and I made the core out of plaster silica and cast that. It was hot casted. Then we had a power fuse, and all the kilns overheated, which caused this mold to crack. So I spent a year putting this back together with dyed Hextol, and it was like a giant puzzle piece, and it was really interesting and difficult to do, but I'm glad I finished it. This is Mending Memories. This is the first teddy bear I did, and this one cracked, and I spent I think 6 months putting it back together with the dyed Hextol, but I really wanted to show you the texture right now in case you forgot what we're trying to get. And I still need to make a stand for this piece, so if you have any suggestions on a nice way to make a nice clean stand for this, please let me know. This is protecting the fragile potential for growth. And with this piece, I found someone had left a wax cinder block. So I took that and covered it with bubble wrap using Elmer's spray glue and that pink orthodontics wrap, and made the mold of that, and then steamed it out and spent probably a couple hours picking out the bubble wrap, but it came out and turned out pretty well. This piece is lemon zest, and the best part about this piece was we used half of a watermelon, and we put bubble wrap on that to make this piece. And then after we made the mold, we gave watermelon to everyone in the building to eat.
All right, that's our third coat, and we're gonna let this set up for now. So we have steamed out the wax sprue, which is right here from the mold. It's done now. It's still warm, which is if you're going to take out a teddy bear, keep your mold wet. If it dries, it's so much harder to get things out. So now I'm going to take my pliers and just pull out these bamboo sticks. Super easy. All right. That's great. That's awesome.
Teddy bear and all?
Well, the brace might work. Yeah, there it goes. All right. So this was the wood that held the teddy bear up so it didn't fold over. And those are the bamboo sticks. So that came out. That's great. We'll just keep that there. It looks like a weird totem thing. And here's our bear. Can you stop recording? There we go. Is this really close up?
It is.
Cool. I'll take out more stuffing then. Ah. Ah. It's really gross. Ah.
The stuffing wet too.
Yeah, the stuffing's so wet. This poor bear. So gross. What the fuck? Oh, here you go. Is that in the shot?
Yeah.
Oh.
We win. It had a heart.
Aww.
The first time that happened, I didn't know. And I was like, why is there a heart in here? And Nikki's like, oh, that gives it life. And I'm like, what? And she's like,
Aww.
it's a Build-A-Bear. And I said, oh, what? She was like explaining the Build-A-Bear process.
That is so funny.
We're gonna keep that there. That's for you.
Yes.
We appreciate all you've done for your sacrifice.
Really fast speed we are at now. So this is the bubble wrap, peach bubble wrap cube, and something I wanted to mention is that I use a power washer to clean the plaster off the inside of these, along with a water pick, which is one of those fancy things for cleaning your teeth. Here's some of my newest work. I started making pyramid-shaped glass sculptures now, and I did that by making the positives out of these with wood. And the trickiest part is getting the angles right so all the wood fits together nice and even. I then glue bubble wrap on top of that to make the molds, and of course the bubble wrap only lasts once. So once you do that and you want to make another one, you just get more bubble wrap. This white cube is the first time I ever worked with an opaque color, and I really liked it because it gives a whole new surface to the piece, and I only had to polish this to about 400 and it gave it a nice like soft edge. Here are some more pyramids, and with these I've been experimenting with blending colors together in the casting process. Here's a red cube I made, and one of the things I want to mention is when you make stuff with cores like this, you use a surprising amount of Elmer's spray glue to keep all the plastic from moving. So just have a constant supply of spray glue and duct tape around you when you're doing experimental stuff like this. The next thing I'm going to show you is a hot casting video of a teddy bear.
I'm Jacci Delaney, and today we are going to be casting a glass teddy bear. And I'm going to be using this ladle right here, and we're going to go into the furnace, which is at 2200 degrees. We're going to grab the glass, and we're going to take it to the kiln and dump the hot glass in there. The setup takes about 5 people to help with me, so we'll see how it goes, and stay tuned. So just fling it as fast as you can. So okay, give it a cut. Yeah. There you go. This still. We're gonna take a look and see how much more glass we need.
No, the ears aren't full. Let's do the little ladle, and hopefully that's enough. If not, we'll do another little ladle. You're gonna have to close that door behind you. So open. Good. Good job. It looks pretty good. All right, we filled up the teddy bear mold in 2 ladles, and I had assistance from Hannah, Nikki, Natasha, and Stuart behind the camera. It took longer to set up for this than it did to actually cast it, and making the mold took 12 hours yesterday, so it's been a good time. All right, thanks. The previous video was made with me and my students at the Columbus College of Art and Design a couple of years ago. One of the reasons why I love hot casting so much is the teamwork that goes into it. And here's Bubble Wrap Child 2 one more time. If you're ever in Columbus, Ohio, please send me a message. You are welcome to come visit my studio and see all the experimental projects I have going on. I'm going to keep kiln casting in the garage for now, and whenever we are all able to go out again, let's all get together soon. Yeah. All right, you genius. Turn that up. Hold on, turn this part up. Very carefully. Oh my God.
It's out! Woo!
Let's see it.
Here is how you turn a teddy bear into an elephant.
Oh my God. This poor bear. Look what happened to you. All right, we got the teddy bear out of the mold. It took us about 2 hours to do this, and this teddy bear has definitely been through the ringer. It's pretty lucky we got it out. The head, it did rip from the body, but I expected that to happen. But so now I just got to wash it out. There's a bunch of these plastic beads in here, and a little bit of leftover stuffing, but nothing major, so should be good. So it's a miracle, but it just takes patience and a couple helpers to do some stuff like this. Here is our mold. It's done now. I'm going to keep this with a garbage bag on it to keep it wet till I fire it, and I still have to clean it out. I'll be posting this on Instagram and Facebook when it's done, so hopefully that will be in a few weeks. Please follow me on Instagram at Jacci Delaney, and on Facebook. I'll be posting that there as well. So this ended up being about a 100-pound mold, so always trying to have someone help me move heavy stuff like this. And like I said, I've done 2 bears previously, so here's a bear. I believe this is my first one I did, and you can see that texture on there. And then this one I think had an annealing issue or a power issue, one of the two. And so I ended up gluing it back together with dyed Hextol.
and just to get this effect. So that's that texture I'm so interested in. And the other thing I wanted to show you is some of the tools I use. I pretty much use whatever I can find around. The one thing I did buy for this was this long vice grip. It's 13 inches long, and I knew I needed something pretty long to get inside the mold, so I would recommend this. And then the other thing I've used for years are the Cutco scissors. And I only have these because I sold Cutco for a split second when I was 17 years old. But these ended up being really good scissors for pretty much cutting anything. And then the other stuff is just random, found around the house or garage materials. And thank you to Gas for doing this virtual exhibition. I can't wait to see all the other videos. And big thanks to Caleb Akers for being my assistant and then helping me edit the videos together. And also thank you to David Barish for helping out with this process. Again, please ask any questions or comments. And I hope you enjoyed this. Thank you.